All right, guys, we're off to section 7, or sorry, not 7.2. I'm weeks and weeks behind. Oh no, what's happening to me? So we are getting ready to talk about section 8.2, and 8.2 is all about the receiving end of a facility or a manufacturing company. So, Tracy, what do you mean receiving? We're going to have a whole lecture on receiving. Absolutely, we are, because the receiving end of a company and the shipping end of a company is drastically important, and we got to give kind of credit where credit is due, because there's a lot of things that go on in a receiving area of one of these types of facilities if I'm working in pharmaceutical or biopharmaceutical manufacturing. So let's talk a little bit about receiving. What is their role? What's their responsibilities? What are some of the things that I would see if I am employed in that area? So first off, they control everything. Oh no, I gotta put all of my faith and effort into the receiving department? Yeah, because everything that comes into the facility, it is their responsibility to make sure that things are done the proper way. So when UPS comes up to my front door, then I'm going to take that box and I'm going to go into my kitchen and I'm going to open it up and rip it apart. And if it's something from Shein, I'm going to put it on immediately and take a look at it. Well, things happen a little differently on the shipping and receiving end of a company, as you can imagine, and we've got to talk about what these things are. So they're not ordering off of Temu and Shein, but what they are doing is they are receiving orders, and those orders can include, number one, drug components, so everything that goes into that drug manufacturing process, the packaging materials that we're going to have to put that stuff in, any type of spare parts, number three, that we might need for equipment or instrumentation, both on the manufacturing side and maybe on the testing side as well. Number four, the cleaning agents. We just spent a whole module on module 7 about how to clean the proper way. What is a detergent? What's a sanitizer? So these cleaning agents have to come in. They've got to be stored. They've got to be checked. We've got to make sure we're ordering what we're supposed to be ordering. Number 5 are all the lab supplies. Absolutely. It is one way in, folks, into the facility, and it's through the S&R, the shipping and receiving department, is where this is going to take place. Next, anything like PPE, those are also going to go through. So all of the gowning supplies, all of the gloves, all of the disposable lab coats, anything that I am using in the manufacturing side or the lab testing side, because often they go hand in hand, it's got to go through the receiving department. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at receiving jobs, you might look at these listings and, okay, let's just take an example. For instance, Alchemy on 23rd Street is going to be hiring receiving people to work their shipping and receiving department. It's going to be their job to do a very important task for that company, and that is to receive these materials and then process these materials the proper way. And what this means is that, first off, okay, I'm going to do a big old draw here. Let's see if I can switch the color of my pen. State of control is a big term that they like to use. And what this means is that everything that is ordered has to be ordered from the particular supplier that they have deemed appropriate. These are approved vendors that we have to order materials and supplies through. So the shipping and receiving department, and on the receiving end especially, we want to make sure that we are receiving items from the appropriate approved list as they start to arrive at the facility. This state of control is going to go above and beyond that, though. So if you take a look at the definition, it says that they are ensuring that everything is ordered correctly from the same suppliers. They are scheduling quality tests, so that way we can test those items before we release them for the manufacturing folk. And then they're also going to have to store them in a particular way. Do they go into the refrigerator? Do they go out into a big bin and they can sit at room temperature on the floor? Do they need to go into a freezer? What are we supposed to be doing with these things? It's the receiving end that should be scheduling this type of stuff. And then they're also initiating and creating these chain of custody forms very, very commonly. What this means is that the material is getting arrived at the facility and the chain of custody begins. So here locally it begins. So what goes on is that the receiving department has now acquired those items, whatever they might be. They are filling out a form, they are signing it, they are dating it, they are putting a signature and an initial on those particular forms to let us know who accepted those items, and then where did they go? Where did they go from that moment? Did they go into storage? Did they go into the freezer? Did they go into a separate area of the facility? What room number did they go into? And then from that moment on, who has came in contact with those items? So if I go and I need those items, I'm going to have to sign that form. I'm going to have to initial it. I'm going to have to sign and date it. And that way they will know who came and picked up what, and on the occurrences each and every time that that happens. So all of these things are very important, and receiving has a very large role to play when it concerns that type of information. Again, they go above and beyond. So what's happening here is that materials come through. They will classify them in a couple of different categories. A, they will either put them in quarantine. B, they will put them into released, green light, go. And then C, they will put them under a reject category. So we got to figure out, okay, what is good about these items? We hope that they are good. And if they are good and the testing comes out okay, then we can clear those out and we can clear them to use. If they start failing certain tests, though, we can't allow the manufacturers to do any work with those materials at all. So these three categories are, again, very important, and it's up to this receiving type of department to categorize these into the proper classifications and to clear them out when they need to be cleared and to reject them when they need to be rejected. So if you look at the list of the bullet points that are on the slide, number 1, they approved material specification generation. Number 2, the vendor qualification and the ordering. Number 3, the material receiving and quarantine. Number 4, the material sampling and testing. Number 5, the material release or rejection. And number 6 is production use. Folks, all of these are very often the responsibility of shipping and receiving. Receiving more so. So what's happening here is that receiving sometimes are placing these orders. They are placing them with approved vendors and approved items that are on a list. So bullet point number 1, check, I've done it. Next up, we're double checking that those vendors are approved. So once I double check that those vendors are on a list that we can order from and we say it's a-okay to get supplies from them, then check, number 2 is now done. Number 3, once those items come to the facility and I open my doors and I'm like, hello FedEx, come on in. Well, okay, it could be FedEx. It might be a completely different type of delivery system or service, and it could be these big old rigs that are on the interstate. Who knows? It just depends on how much we got to order. But those materials come into the facility, and maybe they do that on a daily basis. So if that's the case, I need to put them somewhere until we get to them. So as the materials start to come into the facility, we are going to put them under quarantine. Oh no, COVID-19. No, I don't want to be quarantined for 14 days. Oh, well, no, it's not 14 days. We changed our mind. You only need to be quarantined for 7 days. Oh no, we changed our mind again. You don't need to be quarantined for 7, just 5 now. Okay, well, make up your mind, please. Well, okay, material receiving and quarantine, what this is basically telling me is that these materials have to go into an area of the facility where no one can use them. No one can touch them. They've got to be quarantined because they're contagious. No, not really. They're not contagious. What this means, though, is that they're going to be locked and no one can have access to them, and you cannot use them until we actually test them for the things that they need to be tested for. So that is a quarantine sticker. Sorry, we're in waiting. We're in limbo. We got to do some tests before we clear them out. Number 4, material sampling and testing. So receiving very often will take a portion of these materials that are arriving, and they will send them to the laboratory areas, and they will say, okay, laboratory folks, now you do your job. You test them. You do what you're supposed to do, and then you give us those results back and let us know if this material is okay to use. So, number 4, check! I get it kind of moving on. Number 5, material release. So what this means is that after the quarantine goes and after the lab tests are done, lab tests have to be done first. If the lab tests go ching ching, you got it, girl. Okay, then we go down to release. And release basically means that now you can use them for whatever purpose you need to use them for. So we change those classifications and we control the material. And that's what this definition is all about. If it does not pass the lab test, then guess what? Wah, wah. Sorry, you got a whammy. And that whammy means they are now rejected. And that rejected means you cannot use them, and we send them back to the company because they sent us bad stuff and we caught the bad stuff and we told them what's bad, and now we're going to send it back to them and say, give us another shipment, give us another batch, because this did not pass our criteria that we have set forth. Okay, number 5, cha-ching! Now I go on to number 6, and number 6 says production use. So once they are released, then finally, we can go in to the manufacturing area and we can allow the manufacturers to do the job that they were hired to do, and that is to make and manufacture these pharmaceutical related drugs. Again, they can be small molecule or they can be biopharmaceutical drugs. It does not matter. But all in all, they're going to be making something for the company. So notice it says at the very bottom, active ingredients are tested for the purity and the potency and the impurities, and sometimes several different tests are going to be required for these materials. So the purity is just, is it what it says it is? The potency is the concentration of them. So how much is supposed to be there in that sample, right? That's a sample portion. Is it 100%? Is it 99%? Is it 98%? What's the concentration that we're after? And the impurities, of course, okay, we might have a little bit of wiggle room. We might be allowable to have a certain impurity level in these ingredients that we're going to be using. And if so, we just want to make sure that those impurities are kind of in line with what we need. So those are the types of things that we're looking for in what we call these raw materials. And that's exactly the definition that we use and the terms that we use in regular laboratory manufacturing types of situations. Here's a flow chart of kind of what goes on as far as ordering and receiving these supplies. Again, a lot of people will go, yeah, I don't want a shipping and receiving type of job. Well, okay, a lot of times it requires specialized training. A lot of times it requires computer systems and databases and entering and logging in information. And your job is very important because without you, you cannot release these types of ingredients, and people would not have the stuff that they need to do their jobs with. So it is a very important role and job task with a company. So I don't want you to be one of those people where it's like, I don't want this kind of job receiving. I went to school. I went to go get a degree and I went to go get a certificate. Okay, well, that's great. I'm glad that you did. And that's very important. But you got to have some insight into the science, laboratory arena, and the manufacturing arena to do well in these roles. So please do not snarl your nose at these job listings. Apply for those jobs if you see them and you're interested in kind of making an impact with the company that really is like a little octopus and all of its arms go in all directions of those facilities. Very, very important role for these people. All right, so next up, here's a flow chart, and it's like, what does all this flow chart mean? Okay, well, let's take a look at ordering materials. Okay, so we're going to start right here. So let's say that I am out of something and I need to order it. Okay, well, I just can't call up the company and be like, hey, send me some, please. This is not Amazon. I can't just go click something, put it in my cart, and have it shipped. There's a whole kind of thing that goes on with ordering materials at these facilities, and sometimes the ordering is kind of tasked to these kind of related areas of the ordering, the shipping, and the receiving departments all in one. It depends on how the company is set up. Granted, not all the companies are set up that way, but don't be surprised if it kind of is lumped all together. So before I order materials, what has to happen is that on the front or on the back end, we're going to do what we call vendor audits. So this is going to be, is that company legit? If I order from them, can I continue to order from them for a long period of time? Are they going to send us quality stuff? Or are they just kind of halving it, and are they just kind of putting whatever they want to put in there? And then am I just sending it and they're going to go out of business next week? Can I rely on the product that I need as a company to operate? This is a vendor audit, and these vendors are going to be very specific, and these vendors are going to go scrutinization. And once the vendors have been selected, then great. Those vendors have been selected, and now what happens is that we order stuff from them. Those vendors will then turn around and make sure that they've got those supplies in-house and that they can deliver on their promises. And this supply chain will eventually go to the company. All right, that's great. That's very simple, right? But look, there's more blocks of this flow chart. It's not just that. Look at all this other stuff up at the top. So I need to go up and I need to take a look at these other categories. I need to take a look at these other areas that's going on that maybe is happening behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz. And sooner or later, though, someone's going to have to do it. So let's take a look at some of the back end of things that have happened leading up to this point. So part A, this part A is going to be all about this idea that I've got a test that needs to be done, and I'm going to approve that test. And when I approve that test, what is going on with my screen? Oh no, what's happening? So what they've done is that they've actually went through and they're like, hey, listen, we are looking at these analytical test developments right up here at the very top. And when we do this, what we're hoping to show is that these are the materials that are needed, and these are the things that we need in order to do that job. We've already proved it. We attempted it. We know that it works. So because of that, these are the things that are on our ingredient list. So if that is the case, then that's great news. That's what we're after. So after that goes on and we prove that this is what we need, then that goes into the analytical and test methods that you see at the top of the flow chart. And then sooner or later, someone's going to approve those items and those ingredients for use. Next up are the SDSs, and the SDS stands for Safety Data Sheet. So a safety data sheet is going to give us specifications on how to handle those materials and how to dispose of those materials. Is there anything else that I need as a user to handle those or to dispose of those the proper way? If so, we're going to have to order that material as well, and that also is going to have to be approved. Next are patient inserts. Believe it or not, we got to think about the whole entire flow path of what that medication is going to take in order to market. So the patient inserts are a thing. Where do we order those from? How do they look? What kind of dimension do we want? What color font do we want? Where do we order them from? So that way they can print them and we can just simply take them and add them as an insert. So all of those product specifications have to be determined in the very beginning stages. And again, that has to be ordered. So we got to know, where do we order those from? So that has to be reviewed. That has to be approved. Next up are the packaging specifications. Okay, so is it going to go into a blister pack? Is it going to go into a box? Is it going to go into some type of vial or container? Okay, well, if so, what is it? So where do we order those things from? That also has to be determined, and then that, of course, has to be reviewed and approved. Finally, up in the top flow, we see QC sampling requirements and the sampling protocols. So once these materials come in-house, what does the quality control department do to make sure it is quality? That's the whole reason that they exist. So the testing that has to be involved, what type of testing are they going to accomplish? What are the needed things in order to do that test with? We have to order those reagents. We have to order that material. It has to show up. We've got to order that from approved vendors. So all of that material also has to be reviewed and approved. Finally, when all of that stuff comes together and we have a plan in place and we know exactly what we're going to do, then we create what we call a master batch record. And a master batch record is going to be abbreviated as BOM. And we're going to talk a little bit about this a little later on in a different video. But if you notice, that flow chart says the record, the storage, the archival, the approval. So that master batch record is going to be pretty important. So we got to figure out what this is. Then finally, we got to order those materials from those vendors that we've already determined what we need, why we need it, how much of it do we need. All of that gets ordered. Invoicing begins to happen. So the receiving and the management flow, the material control, all of this is taking care of the invoicing. So that way people get paid, and then we can check off, yep, we received what we ordered. Absolutely, everything checks off. And then finally, we receive those materials in the very back end. So this is where we're going to pick up in the next video, because we're not quite done with the slide, believe it or not. There's more to receiving than this, and in the next video we're going to talk more about it. So do not take a break. Go ahead and hit play on the next video. Keep trucking. Take a swig of water, but otherwise stay tuned because there's more to show.